I want to share with you, actually, a message I shared with my church yesterday. And I suspected it was something my church needed to hear, and based on the feedback I'm getting almost by the minute, I think I hit a chord. I think I scratched an itch. I'm going to do this 4-week series, and I want to bounce it off you and see if it scratches an itch for you as well. I'm going to talk about your soul. I think Elise used the word centeredness. I think we're basically talking about the same thing. Let me get into it this way. I think when I mentioned, wow, that was almost 60 years ago, you figured out I'm an old guy, okay? I'm 66 years old. I own it. I'm not ashamed of it. I've embraced this season of my life, even though it's meant some changes. I remember when I was in my 20s. And I could play basketball all night, just get up the next day and go. And then I hit my 30s, and I played basketball all night, but I'd get up in the morning and I was sore. Then I hit my 40s, and I'd wake up in the morning and I was sore. And I didn't do anything last night, okay? Now I've hit the stage of life where I can wake up in the morning and I got a crick in my neck because I hurt myself sleeping. How pathetic is that? I can go to sleep and hurt myself. But I'm just accepting what the Bible says is reality. Outwardly, we are wasting away. But the second half of that verse says, but inwardly, we are being renewed day by day. And I love that. But here is what I want to say. I don't think many Christians are doing renewing very well. And so many believers are exhibiting signs their souls are tired and anxious and joyless. Rick mentioned he's afforded me several times the privilege to speak to some of the most significant marketplace leaders in America. A few will be here this week. And I shared with them some of the things I'm going to share with you last October. And I just asked the question, is your soul tired? And oh my goodness, the response I got back. The last 3 years, if you have been in a leadership position, have been the hardest of my life. You can't make a decision anymore that someone doesn't get on Facebook and beat you up about. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Get a shot, don't get a shot. MAGA, Black Lives Matter. It doesn't matter what you say, and if you don't say anything, you get beat up too. It has been an exhausting time for leaders. And what I learned is that many of them, in fact, many Christians, period, would not want for me to pray over them what Pastor John prayed over one of his friends. There's a verse in 3 John 2 where he said, "My friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well." Even as. And so I asked those leaders, and I asked my church yesterday, would you want me to pray that prayer for you? Right now, would you want me to pray, I hope everything else in your life is as healthy as your soul is? That your physical health, that your family, that your business are all as healthy as your soul is. Because all around me I see evidence our souls are not doing so well. I've been reading a lot about this lately. I've been reading a lot about young people lately. It's discouraging. 94% of college students say they feel overwhelmed. Now, I don't want to discourage you, but do you realize you have as much margin in your life right now as you're ever going to have? In 10 years, you're going to have a job and a mortgage and 2 little kids. And even now, you feel overwhelmed. Here's what's happening. We have accepted as normal a way of doing life that is destroying our souls. So I've got 5 questions that I want you to write down, because I think every now and then it might be good for you just to pull them out and answer them. Here's question number 1. Is it well with my soul? You see, God created us body and soul. Our soul isn't just part of us. Our soul is that center of us. It's that being where God dwells. We were meant to be saturated with the being of God, and our soul is where that happens. The psalmist says, my soul thirsts for the living God. That's your soul is that part of you that wants to connect to something that is transcendent and bigger than just what you can see. And there's another psalm. He says, bless the Lord, praise the Lord, my soul, all my inmost being. Praise His holy name. So deep within you, there is a part of you that deeply wants to connect with God. Whether you know it or not, whether you believe in God or not, you were made by God and you were given a soul, and it's there. And that soul wants to connect to its Creator. And this is why the enemy is relentless in making war against our souls. So let me just state the obvious. Our souls aren't doing very well. We live in a culture that has normalized as a way of life that is absolutely toxic to our souls. And the evidence is all around us. The skyrocketing rates of anxiety and depression, especially among people your age. The rising abuse of alcohol and opioids, the constant airing of grievances and offense, the age of outrage, and most of all, just living always exhausted on the inside is the new normal. And we keep telling ourselves, it's just a season. You know, when I graduate, when I get that paper done. No, it's not a season. It's a lifestyle. We're teaching ourselves to live in a way that is killing us. People are losing their souls. And when you lose your soul, you lose your connection to God. And so I see too many Christians that would not want John's prayer prayed over them. Please don't pray that the rest of my life is as healthy as my soul right now. The good news is Jesus understands. And Jesus offered the most beautiful invitation that's ever been given. He said, come to me, all you that are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, because I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. He's not just offering temporary relief. He's offering restoration. He's offering a better way to live. He's offering to be our shepherd, not just our eternal Savior. So that leads me to the greatest song ever written. I know that's a bold claim, but when you've been on the playlist for 3,000 years, you get to say that. Here it is. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. So, for about the next 20 minutes, I hope you can be just real honest. I don't even care if you take notes. If you would just really lean in. And I want you to answer honestly. How's your soul doing? Remember the words of two of history's greatest philosophers. Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. And Ice Cube said, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Okay? So for a few minutes, let's check yourself, okay? Second question. Is my soul undernourished? Because I believe much of the damage we are doing to our souls is self-inflicted. And it starts with the vacuous, the frivolous, the even poisonous diets we feed our souls. And let's be real honest, a huge part of the problem are these dopamine dispensers that we keep in our pockets. Especially among young people. as a pastor, I am absolutely, enormously concerned about the health of my young people. The statistics are stunning. The mental health crisis among young people and the rates and the decline, you can chart it. This is not a Christian talk. This is just the evidence. It started skyrocketing in 2007. Anybody want to guess what happened in 2007? The iPhone. The iPhone. So I went on a sabbatical this summer to do some soul care, and God convicted me. My soul cannot do life at the speed of a smartphone. It can't. My soul wasn't built to take in every single day, almost by the hour, all the hate and the outrage and the suffering and the pain in the world. Not to mention the incredible seduction of the trivial distraction it offers me. And here's what I know, and you may not like what I'm about to say, but you have never spent 30 minutes scrolling on your iPhone, playing your games, reading the comments, going down the rabbit trail of the memes and the videos, and then said when you were through, I feel so much closer to God now. Our souls are overgorged and undernourished, and they cannot rest. See, that's the thing about sheep. They don't lie down until they're full. As long as they're hungry, they can't rest. So what's the shepherd's job? The shepherd's job is to make sure that the sheep have a diet that will nourish them so that they can lie down and rest. The Psalm says, the law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. God says, I can give you a diet that's good for your soul, but you're going to have to choose it. So I made some choices this past summer, and I'm going to tell you something. My soul is healthier today than it's been in a long time. You may not want to make my choices. I'm not telling you you should, but they've blessed my soul. One was I had a huge Twitter account, thousands of followers. And every day for years, I would try to just tweet one encouraging thing. I hope I did some good. But at the end of the day, my soul was being damaged by all the sewage I was having to wade through on that platform to do one good thing a day. So I deleted my account. And here's the funny thing. It seems like the world is getting along just fine without me being on Twitter. I'm not saying it's wrong for you to be on Twitter. I'm just saying it's wrong for you not to ask yourself, is it good for my soul? Another thing I've done, I bought into the lie that the culture sold me that I can have noise all the time. That if I'm not listening to something on a screen, I need to have iPods in. That's a lie. So I made the decision when I'm in the car, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to listen to God, see if He's got something to say to me. Just enjoy being with Him. It has been so good for my soul. Augustine said, we have to empty ourselves of that which fills us if we want to be filled with that of which we are currently empty. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not going to be a legalist. I'm just asking you to have the courage to ask yourself this question. Does my current diet contribute to a healthy soul? Will my diet sustain a healthy soul? Here's the next question. Is my soul over anxious? See, sheep in David's day when he wrote this song were notoriously anxious animals. Here's why. Because sheep lived, in David's day, there was bears and there's lions and there's wolves around, predators. What can a sheep do? It doesn't have sharp teeth, doesn't have sharp claws. The only thing a sheep can do is spot and run. And that's why sheep are so skittish. That's why they're always looking. And in the same way, just like sheep, Anxiety-producing situations are not for us an occasional possibility. They are our constant reality. Do you know what the HarperCollins word of the year is for 2022? Permacrisis. We now live in an age where we are never not in a crisis. One just stacked on top of the other. Think of the last 3 years. Pandemic, climate change, war in Ukraine, political instability, racial tension, inflation. This is the world we live in now. There is always a disaster about to happen over our heads. Just like the sheep can't live where there's not bears and wolves. So the only thing that can calm a sheep down is to know the sheep is in the presence of the shepherd. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you that are weary and burdened, I will give you rest." And could it be that behind so much of our soul weariness is the acknowledgement that we have functionally stopped coming to Jesus? You get fried, you are worn out, you feel overwhelmed, so we go to Netflix or a bottle or a gym. And we just keep maintaining a lifestyle that frustrates restoration. About 20 years ago, off the coast of New England, 3 fishing boats sank. All 3 of them were hardy ships. There were no breach in the hull. All 3 of them were captained by veteran sailors. All 3 of them had finished their load and they were coming to shore. Here's what they learned. So they were fishing for crabs. A crab trap weighs about 300 pounds. You fill it with crabs, it now weighs 1 to 1.5 tons. And these boats had 10 extra crab traps on them. In other words, they were trying to navigate with 10 to 15 tons more than that boat was designed to carry. Why would they do that? Because it had become normal. That's the way the industry had just kind of gone. I mean, somebody a few years back said, if we put 1 more trap on, we could make more money. Well, 3 more traps, more profit. How about 10 more traps? They were just doing what was now normal. And what was normal became fatal. So Jesus is saying to us, you don't have to do 2023 like you've done the last 3 years. I'm offering to you a way to live that would refresh your soul. You could live a new normal and save your soul if that's what you want. But let's be honest. Every one of us have said, this is something I really want, but we weren't willing to do what it took to get it. I'll give you an example. So, when I was your age, I never learned to like coffee. So, if I needed a caffeine kick, my choice was the state drink of Texas, which of course is a Dr. Pepper. And so I drank Dr. Peppers. Well, as you get older, your metabolism changes. And I couldn't handle all that sugar. It was going straight to my waist. So I taught myself to like Diet Coke. Don't you judge me, okay? And I started drinking way too much Diet Coke every day. I knew it wasn't good for me. There's a recent study that said there could be a link between diet soda and short-term memory loss. For years, there have been some studies saying there could be a connection between artificial sweeteners and some kinds of cancers. There's no way all that carbonation and caffeine in my body every day is good for me. Oh, I don't know if you heard this. There's a recent study that said there could be a connection between diet soda and short-term memory loss. And so I'm just saying that more than once I've made the resolution, I'm not drinking so much Diet Coke. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I still drink too much. It's not because I don't know that I shouldn't. It's that it's just become normal. And it's hard to resist what everyone calls normal. There's a verse in Jeremiah. Listen to this. Ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. But you said, we will not walk in it. We will not accept this gift, God. We will not go the way you said we could go, that we could have healthy souls. We are like kids resisting a nap. The very thing we need is the very thing we fight. So here's the fourth and most important question. Am I willing to do what it takes to care for my soul? Am I willing to do what it takes to care for my soul? Now please understand, only Jesus can save my soul for eternity. But I must partner with Jesus to save my soul from infirmity in this current life. If I'm going to have a healthy soul, I'm going to have to partner with Jesus. And yet very few Christians have a conscious plan for taking care of their souls. Instead, we lie to ourselves. And we naively cling to the illusion. It's just a season. I'm just going through a season. I'm going to graduate and it's going to get easy. Or we tell ourselves, well, I just need to find some more time. I got a word for you. You ain't getting more time. You get 24 hours a day. Guess how much time God's given you? You don't need more time. You need to use the time you got differently. You see, what Jesus said is, you need to take my yoke. Well, let me put it this way. I'd like you to write this down. You cannot have the life of Jesus without the lifestyle of Jesus. You cannot have the life of Jesus without the lifestyle of Jesus. See, if I said to you, I'm assuming not all of you, but most of you are probably Christians. And if I said, do you believe that Jesus is the way and the truth and the life? You'd probably say, yes, I do. But here's what I've learned. We believe Jesus is the truth more than we believe He's the way. We believe what He says is true more than we're willing to actually live the way He said we're supposed to live. Can you imagine a stressed out Jesus? Can you imagine Jesus ever saying to anybody, I got no time for you right now. I'm so fried and burnt out. He said, because He's God. No, He was fully man. And Jesus intentionally engaged in practices that nourished His soul. So that's what I'm going to do for the next 3 weeks. I'm going to teach my church what some of those practices are. But I'm going to give you a little preview right now. I'm going to give you 3 words. The first one is sleep. I don't think it's ironic. I don't think it's a coincidence that Elise mentioned that. In fact, flying up on the plane yesterday, I was reading a book by some counselor, psychologist guy. He had an entire chapter on what our lack of sleep is doing to our physical and mental health. Jesus believed in sleep. Jesus, if He was tired, He rested. He could go to sleep on a boat in the middle of a storm if he was tired. Did you know that before Edison and the light switch, the average person slept 11 hours a day? Think about it. There's no electric light. Candles are expensive for poor people. It got dark at 6 o'clock. You went to bed. Which, by the way, makes me feel a little better when I read about these old saints that said get up at 4 in the morning and pray. Yeah, but they went to bed at 6. Okay? Just 40 years ago, the average American slept 7.9 hours, almost 8 hours a day. Now it's down to under 7. We found something called the late show, and then we found something called the late show, and then we told ourselves, I'll just have some coffee or have a Red Bull. And we are trying to deny our biology and the way that we were created by God, and it's costing us. Do you know sleep is a statement of faith? In the Psalms, when I go to sleep, what I'm basically doing is saying, God, you're on the throne, you got the world, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to check out for a while. I'm serious as I can be. You want to be physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy. Sleep more than you're sleeping. Stop believing the lie that if you just pump enough stuff into your body to keep you awake, you're going to function well. It is bad for your soul. Second word, you're not going to like it. Silence. Jesus deliberately pursued silence. All through the Gospels, you find verses where Jesus is going off to a solitary place to pray and to recover. He sent his disciples on their first big mission trip. They came back. It says in Mark 6, he said, come with me. Now notice what he said. Come with me to a quiet place and get some rest. Not to a noisy place. Come with me to a quiet place and get some rest. It's not your fault, but you're one of the first generations that's born in history that doesn't have to ever put up with quiet. It's also, I'm not saying it's you personally, but I'm just saying it's also, you're the most anxious generation in history on record. No generation's more anxious than your generation. And part of the problem, I'm convinced, is you don't ever have to be quiet. Here's the thing. Do we believe it's a priority to make margin in our life for God? Most of us really do love God. But we don't prioritize making time just to be with God. And our souls suffer by the constant exposure to noise and to rush. You want a healthier soul? Sleep, silence, third word, Sabbath. I'm going to do a whole sermon next Sunday just on what Scripture says about Sabbath. Jesus was very intentional about honoring the Sabbath. Now, part of what that means is every week Jesus went to church. It was his intentioned practice and habit. Every week he publicly gathered with other believers and worshiped God. It was good for his soul. But Jesus understood Sabbath is more than just a day. Sabbath is an orientation and a way to look at life. You know, all the ancient peoples have creation stories. All of them do. But the creation story in Genesis is so different for several reasons. Two of the most obvious. Genesis is the only creation story we have found in antiquity where men and women are equal. They're both created in the image of God. Nobody else's creation story treats women like that. And the other, the Genesis story is the only creation story where human beings aren't created to produce for the gods. God has this seventh day, the only day that he blesses and calls holy. And God puts this rhythm into creation called Sabbath, that we're made to work and to rest. In fact, go back and read creation. It's interesting. Go back and read those days. There was evening and there was morning every time. Now, we would say there's morning, then there's evening. No, there was evening and there was morning. You started every day from a place of rest. Think about Adam. What was his very first day? He's made on the sixth day, right? What was the seventh day? Adam's first day wasn't to produce. It was just to enjoy God. Sabbath reminds us we're not what we do, but who we're loved by. Sabbath calls us to embrace our limits, to accept the reality the world doesn't depend on my activity, but on God's. When I came to the church I'm at now in Fort Worth, I was in my early 30s, I had 2 little kids. Church had some serious problems. It had a huge debt issue. It was about to go bankrupt. It was awful. And I'd only been there a few months, and I was diagnosed with mononucleosis. I don't know how I got it. I've never had it. All I remember was I was fatigued. And the doctor said, the only thing you can do is rest. It made me mad. I don't have time to rest. I'm a busy person, and I'm an important person, and my family needs me, and my church needs me, and I need to be here, and I need to be there, and I need to be fixing things. And the Lord rebuked me. And I heard in my spirit the Lord say, I had Fort Worth under control before you got here. Take a nap. Now I want you to think about something. Again, thanks to these things, we live in an age where you can always be at work. In fact, the new paradigm, I didn't grow up with it, but you have. The new paradigm is 24/7, you are expected to be available. How in the world can your soul thrive in a climate like that? Think about it. There's 10 commandments. As a pastor, I have to keep 9. I can break 1. Could I be your pastor if I committed adultery and cheated on my wife? No. If I got angry and hit somebody and they died? No. How about if I just consistently lied to you? Would you let me be your pastor? No. But you'll let me work myself to death. You let me grind and produce and toil until I am exhausted, and you will applaud me and give me a raise and say, boy, we have a dedicated pastor. It is the one command a Christian can break and be applauded for. I had someone say one time when I was teaching this, well, Pastor, the devil never takes a day off. Well, he's the devil. I don't think the goal is to be more like him. Now here's the thing, and I want you to listen, this is important. I bet some of you are fried. I bet you are pretty worn out. And here's the lie, is that you can fix it with a quick fix. Okay? I'll just go on a retreat. I'll have a worship encounter with God. I'll get a life coach, or I'll do some therapy. All those things are good. But you can't quick fix an unhealthy soul. Okay? What Jesus is calling us to do is intentionally build the kind of life that is good for your soul. A life that has rhythms that make room for God. And if we build it, He will come because He loves to fill us. Jesus didn't say, learn about me. He said, learn from me. He's not offering escape. He's offering equipment. He's offering a yoke. Jesus says, I'm offering to teach you how to live your life in a way where you will thrive and your soul will be healthy. Now, let me tell you what I told my church yesterday. I told them that way back in July when I was preparing and thinking about these things, I told my wife, Jamie, I said, here's my concern. I'm going to stand up in January and tell people, our souls aren't doing so well. We need help. And 100% of people in my church are going to nod their head and say yes. And then for 4 weeks, I'm going to tell them things in the Bible they can do to help their soul. And 98% of the people are going to nod their head and say, yes, I agree that those are good things. And then at the end of 4 weeks, only a small percentage of people will do anything that will make a real difference. Because we have accepted as normal the way that we're living that is killing our souls. And here's the thing about your soul. It will not scream if you ignore it. At least not at first. And the outer world will scream. And the big lie is if I can just improve my scorecard in the outer world, then it will give me more joy and peace in my inner world. And Jesus disagrees. maybe the most important question ever asked is this one. What does it profit you if you gain the whole world, but you lose your soul? And I don't think he's just talking about eternal destination. What if he's talking about the way we live right now? So the last question, I want you to pull these 5 questions out every now and then. Just look at them. Here's the last one. What have I really won if I lost my soul in the process? What have I really won if I lost my soul in the process? Because cannot really be success if it seduced me from the cultivation of my soul. Philosopher, theologian, Dallas Willard said the most important thing about you is not what you do, it's who you become. That's what you will take into eternity. I mentioned in the last session, there's 2 questions on the final exam. Did you love God and did you love people? The goal of all of your life is to become a person who loves. And here's what you need to know. You cannot become a person of love when your soul is constantly depleted and weary. Didn't Jesus teach us that? I mean, even if you don't believe he's the Son of God, just read the Gospels and admit this man always seemed to have time to love who was ever right in front of him. Jesus taught us that love and hurry are not compatible. You can't love while you're doing this. And that's the goal. Not what we do, but who we be. Are we becoming people of love? It's interesting, the metaphor Jesus used is his most famous sermon, Sermon on the Mount. He said, why are you so fried? You're so anxious. You're so worried. He used an interesting metaphor. The pagans run after these things. We're not supposed to live that way. Always rushing. Always fried. Always hectic. Always saying, I just need to find a little more time. He's calling us to model a different way to live. Because he knows the world needs the witness of people with rested, healthy, non-anxious souls. Because I'm going to tell you something. Pretty soon you're going to be in the marketplace. That's where Jesus wants you. Non-Christians don't read Bibles. Non-Christians read Christians. And what they are going to notice more than anything else is if you have a healthy, rested soul. I mentioned my son. He graduated in a finance degree 6 years ago. He's in the marketplace. He's doing well in the marketplace, but it's amazing what he's been able to do for Jesus. He's preached 2 weddings for coworkers that weren't followers of Jesus. He is constantly having people say, hey, can we get together for coffee? And they just pour out their lives to him. And you know what? He didn't walk around with a Bible. He didn't wear T-shirts with John 3:16. Do you know what's so attractive about my son in the marketplace? He's got a healthy soul. He's got a rested, non-anxious soul. And I can tell you as a leader, I've been a better leader the last 6 months than I were the last 2 years. My soul's better. I've made some intentional steps to take care of my soul. And when I'm rested and I'm not anxious and my soul is full of God, I treat and lead the people God has put in my life so much better. I should have brought the pictures. I was in a hurry to get here and I didn't. I'm sorry. But I closed yesterday with a picture of a guy named Bob Davy. He's died 2 years ago in England, age of 91, big old beautiful smile, big old beard. But I showed pictures. Not far from him, there was a church. They found a church. I mean, you couldn't tell it was a church. It was so overgrown. It had been desecrated by sacredness. But that church had been there forever. He made it the mention of the last 22 years of his life, almost every day. It was his mission. I'm going to restore this church. He did. There's pictures of it now. It's absolutely beautiful. And inside they found on the wall paintings of scenes from the Bible, 1,000 years old. Let that sink in. 800 years before we remembered the Alamo, these pictures are up there bringing glory to God. He restored a place that was holy, sacred, where people could find God. And Jesus says, that's what I'd like to do for you. I would like to offer you a yoke that would restore your soul. A sacred place, a holy place, a place where you can connect to God. And so, what I want you to do every few weeks is just pull those 5 questions out and be honest and have the courage. Is it well with my soul? Am I giving my soul a good diet? Am I willing to do what it takes? Take care of my soul. What am I really winning if it's killing me on the inside? In short, it doesn't have to be like it's been. You can let Jesus save your soul.